عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: صلى يوم الفطر ركعتين لم يصلي قبلها ولا بعدها ثم أتى النساء ومعه بلال فأمراهن بالصدقة فجعلنا يلقين تلقي المرأة خرسها وسخابها. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. I got a text from a friend who was registering for classes at a college, and he took a screenshot and he sent it, and as he was filling out his application it said to choose your gender, and safe to say there was more than 5 options there. And the closer we get to Qiyamah, the different signs we will see. And the culture or environment that we live in can try to dilute the deen as much as they want. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly mentioned that there are really only 2 options here. That خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا. We have males and we have females. Very simple. No 3rd option, no 4th option, no 5th option. All of us have been created from Adam and Hawa, and from Adam and Hawa we have our community of males and females. Every aspect of our life is based off of wahy, be it Quran or the Sunnah. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a point in the Quran, He wants us to pay special detail to it. For example, you read stories and you might wonder, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not mention the entire story from beginning to end? Well, because He doesn't want you to pay attention to the entire story from beginning to end. He wants you to pay attention to certain points of that story. That's why He mentioned that. That's why He mentioned those certain points. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the genders, and He says, فَلَمَّا وَضَعَتْهَا قَالَتْ رَبِّ إِنِّي وَضَعْتُهَا أُنْثَى وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا وَضَعَتْ وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. That females are a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then males are another creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Females have certain physical characteristics, males have certain physical characteristics. Now, you might be thinking, alright, this is kind of obvious what I'm talking about. Sure. We kind of have to mention the obvious first before we get into our actual talk. And the beauty of the Quran, mashallah, we have a little bit over a month left for the month of the Quran to come, Ramadan. But the beauty of the Quran is that it allows us to connect with it at our own level. Whether it's a child, a 5-year-old child, a 3-year-old child, can connect with the Quran in his or her own method. The teacher, the PhD student, the professors, the individuals who have been teaching tafsir for years on end, they can connect with the Quran at their own level. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned stories. Why? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. That we have mentioned in the Quran stories for those that reflect, those that are smart. It's not just, oh, let's just mention it at nighttime, just a little story to get our blanket and we just listen to it. Oh, this sounds like a good story. Okay, let's go to sleep. Now, what's the hikmah behind the story? What's the lesson behind the story? There has to be some reasoning why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning a story that happened years and years ago. So, keeping up with that theme, I'm going to just quickly talk about a piece of one story. We see the story of Musa alayhi salam kind of spread out throughout the Quran. And it was, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had him change his GPS to Madian. وَلَمَّا تَوَجَّهَ تِلْقَاءَ مَدِيَنَ. When Musa alayhi salam, he set out from Egypt towards Madian, which is about an 8-day journey. He didn't really have any provisions. Direction was given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He did have tawakkul. That's why he said, قَالَ عَسَى رَبِّي أَن يَهْدِيَنِي سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. That I know that perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide me to the right direction wherever I need to go. So he makes his way towards Madian. وَلَمَّا وَرَدَ مَاءَ مَدْيَنَ وَجَدَ عَلَيْهِ أُمَّةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ يَسْقُونَ وَوَجَدَ مِن دُونِهِمْ امْرَأَتَيْنِ تَذُودَانِ قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا قَالَتَا لَا نَسْقِي حَتَّى يُصْدِرَ الرِّعَاءُ وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. Musa alayhi salam, he's going towards Madian, and he sees that there's a well, and you have shepherds and these other individuals. They're fetching water from that well for their animals. And he noticed, kind of apart from the group, there were two females. They had their animals, but they were just sitting kind of on the side. So he went up to them, what's your situation? Why aren't you going like everybody else to get the water from the well? So the sisters, they responded, we didn't want any intermingling to take place. They're all males over there. So we were going to wait until everybody finishes, then we'll go. So just from that part of the story, and keep in mind we're talking about majority of the Mufassirun, that these daughters, these two sisters that were there, they were the daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam. So they had the tarbiyah. So what lesson number one we can learn is they didn't want this aspect of, they had this aspect of modesty and keeping in mind this interaction between gender, the genders. They only wanted to have it as a legitimate reason that they were going to go out and have any interaction with the opposite gender. If there was no reason, then they were staying their pace, they were staying on their side. Okay, that's number one, lesson number one. So you have this aspect of modesty between genders. Now the question might arise, all right, why weren't any of the males from amongst her relatives doing that job that all the other males were doing? Well, they answered that question themselves when they said, وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. Our father, he's an elderly man. He can't do this work of the youth. He's a little bit elderly. So, again, women working within their scope of practice. No. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them an opportunity. That the opportunity arose for them to work, so they go ahead and they work. And we want to remove this, mentality, this Western mentality that there has to be equality of every single thing that males do to females. How quickly do we forget the verses وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, that the males are not like females. I mean, any 2-year-old can tell you that. But for some reason, as we get older, as this environment comes into our heart, then we forget some aspects of the Quran. There is a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given males certain qualities, and there's a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given females certain qualities. I remember when I was teaching in the public schools, in elementary, everybody was female. All the teachers were female, besides me and the gym teacher. Everybody else was a female. And you would think, why is that the case? Well, you think about it. You have 25 kids in the room for like 7 hours, 8 hours. There's a reason why mothers are mothers and fathers are fathers. Mothers can have that amount of patience, that amount of energy to be able to handle whether it's 1, 2, 25 children at once. Now going back to the story, Musa alayhi salam, he fetched the water, right? He fetched that water for them, and he went ahead, and there was a tree, and he sat in the shade. So the sisters, they arrived home to their father, and the father asked, "How'd you come home so early? How'd you come home so quickly? What happened?" He said, they said that there was a nice young man who helped us out. He got the water for us, and we were able to get it, and we went on home. So Shuaib alayhi salam told one of his daughters, "Why don't you go back to Musa alayhi salam, who, if he's still there, call him to our house." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes how she went. Not just, she went and called him. فَجَاءَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. One of the two daughters went in a modest fashion, in a modest manner, walking with modesty. So she had that confidence, obviously, to go to Musa alayhi salam and to call Musa alayhi salam and to bring him in and interact with him in an unflirtatious manner, because that's what Shuaib alayhi salam told her to do so. So Musa alayhi salam accepts that invitation, and obviously he didn't know where she lived, right? He didn't know where Shuaib alayhi salam's house was. So what happened? So he said, "Okay, you go ahead, you walk in the front, and you tell me the directions." And they're walking, and then Imam Nasafi, he mentions in his tafsir, he says, فَأَلْزَقَتَ الرِّيحِ ثَوْبَهَا بِجَسَدِهَا فَوَصَفَتْهُ فَقَالَ لَهَا إِمْشِي خَلْفِي وَنَعَتِي لِي الطَّرِيقِ. Wind blew, and when the wind blew, it showed the kind of form and feature of Shuaib alayhi salam's daughter. And he was doing Ghadd al-Basr, but his eyes glanced up and he saw that. So right at that moment, he said, "Okay, we'll switch. I'm going to go in the front, you be in the back, and you tell me the directions." Okay, so that's another lesson that we learn, that you lower your gaze in a sensible manner when you're dealing with the opposite gender. We all go to work, school, and things of that sort, and there is just necessary interaction that we have with the opposite gender. But you know when that interaction is necessary, when it is not necessary. You know when it is in a flirtatious manner, when it is just doing business. You know. So this doesn't apply to just males or just to females, it applies to both. And when they reached the household of Shuaib alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam was telling Shuaib alayhi salam, well, this is what happened, in Egypt, I knocked out one guy, and then, somebody's chasing me. So one of the brothers gave nasiha to me to leave, so I left. So this daughter of Shuaib alayhi salam, she made a suggestion. She told Musa alayhi salam, she told Shuaib alayhi salam that he was a very trustworthy man, and very strong man as well. Okay, how do we know he was trustworthy? Obviously because he took care of his business, whatever he needed to do. He didn't talk when he didn't need to talk to his daughter. He switched spots when he had to lower his gaze. He was strong because that well that was there to take out the water. There was a big cap on there, like they used to put a big like boulder rock on it, and usually you need at least like 10 people to lift it up. Mashallah, he lifted it up by himself. So that was in terms of innahu qawiyul amin, right? That he was strong and he was trustworthy. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he has a narration which he talks about the firasa of three people in history. He says ahsanun nasi firasatan thalath, that there are three people who have the most foresight in society. He said, number one, he says, Al-Azizu hina tafarrasa fi Yusuf. He says that governor of Egypt, when he looked cautiously at Yusuf and he said, asa an yanfa'ana, maybe he can help us out later on in the future, or maybe we can adopt him. The Aziz said that. Asa an yanfa'ana aw nattakhidahu walada. Number two, he said that Bint Shu'aib alayhi salam hina qalat لأبيها في موسى استأجره إن خير من استأجرت القوي الأمين. When the daughter of Shu'aib alayhi salam said about Musa alayhi salam, you should hire him, because the best person that you can hire is somebody that is trustworthy and somebody that is strong. And individual number three, he says Abu Bakr حين استخلف Umar. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, when he chose Umar radiallahu anh to be the Khalifa. So when the daughter of Shu'aib alayhi salam, her name was Safra, when what was she doing? What was she doing when she was interacting with her own father? What was she hinting at? She was hinting at maybe this is somebody that's suitable for marriage, just maybe. But look at how she put in the request to her father. Okay, she didn't have to say, I really want to marry him. No, she put it between the, inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyyu al-amin. I think you should hire him. I think you should hire him because he's strong and he's a very trustworthy person. Okay. So Shu'aib alayhi salam went ahead, and the story mentions her that he told him that if he wants to get married, then that could be the mahar, right? Of 8 years. But if you finish 10 years, then that's even better. So this is, these are some of the points that we can take from the story of Musa alayhi salam with the daughter of Shu'aib alayhi salam. And interactions between the genders, we see that even during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where the wives of the Prophet ﷺ would teach the Sahaba hadith. For example, we have Aisha radiallahu anha, who is referred to amongst mukathiratu, those individuals who narrated abundant hadith. It's stated that she taught over 3,000 hadith to the males. How would she do that? Min wara'i hijab, right? Behind a partition, she would teach. That's how she do it. And this is it's quoted in the Quran, right? وَإِذَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُنَّ مَتَاعًا فَاسْأَلُوهُنَّ مِنْ وَرَاءِ حِجَابٍ. You need to ask, though. Ask behind the partitions. Ask behind some type of barrier. And same thing with the Prophet ﷺ at the time of Eid. He would do a Eid khutbah, and after the Eid khutbah, the general Eid khutbah, he would take Bilal radiallahu anh with him and address the women folk and their needs, whatever questions they might have had. So time is up. We'll just quickly summarize some lessons from that story, because as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. We have to take some type of lesson from these stories that are mentioned in the Quran. Number one, we talked about you're going to have interactions between the genders, so keep them modest and have them for a legitimate reason, and when they are. Number two, women, obviously if they need to work, they work within their scope of practice. That's number one. Number two. Number three is when you are interacting with them, then you lower your gaze in a sensible manner when dealing with the opposite gender. It goes for both males and females. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have taqwa in every aspect of our life. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.